Can the card take a tank of gas before Friday? 6:40 on a Tuesday, and you are awake before the alarm, running the numbers in the dark. Here's what should bother you about that. It has almost nothing to do with what you earn. There's an invisible reason your brain quietly kills a $500 savings plan and protects a $47 one. Same person, same paycheck, opposite outcome. So here it is up front. $47 once a week moved before you are awake. Plus, one rule for money that comes loose, and one rule for what you are never allowed to do in a good month. 3 moves. That's the whole thing. And it will not work until you know why the $500 version died. This is the part that should make you angry. Almost every savings rule you've ever been handed assumes there's something left at the end of the month. Save 20%. 20% of what exactly? Once rent, the car, and the grocery run have taken their turn, that percentage is being applied to a number that isn't there. The people who write these rules have never had the problem the rules are meant to solve. And if you have ever put your real figures into one of those calculators, seen the year it spat back, and closed the tab without telling anyone, that wasn't a lack of discipline. That was a reasonable response to a plan built around a paycheck you do not have. You have started this 3 times. It has ended by the second month 3 times. That isn't 3 personal failures. That's one badly designed plan failing on schedule. And this is a hard year to find that out. Bankrate survey keeps landing in the same place. Under half of us could absorb a $1,000 problem without borrowing. For a lot of people, the paycheck isn't simply small. It moves. A different number in March than February for reasons nobody chose. A plan that assumes a steady surplus was designed around a life that is not yours. Your money right now has a particular texture, and it isn't really poverty. It's that every single dollar already has somewhere to be. $9 of margin decides whether Thursday feels fine or awful. Your stomach drops when the car makes a noise it wasn't making last week. One night, 11:40, a Tuesday, there's a $40 form from school on the table, and it's rearranging your entire month. $40. That's the night you finally say it, even if only to yourself. If one paycheck doesn't land, all of this comes apart. But the thing that changes it doesn't come from a bank or an app. It comes from Walt. Walt has laid tile for 30 years. You asked him how he copes with a floor that takes 4 months. He looked at you like the question was slightly stupid and said, "I've never once thought about the whole floor. I only think about where this one goes." However, look at the shape of both plans you have already buried. An enormous number at the finish line and a monthly demand in the middle. $500 a month. $20,000 eventually. Watch what your brain actually does with $20,000. It files it under someday. Vague, weightless, faintly fictional. And your brain will not act on fiction. It just leaves the number out there, being large. Big goals don't die of arithmetic. They die of the view. So, 3 moves. The rung, the catch, the ceiling. Together, they are the rung rule. And no, it isn't put away $47 a week. If it were that, this would be a 30-second video, and you'd have stopped by March. Move 1, the rung. A rung is $47, and it is the only unit your emergency fund is permitted to exist in. Not a year of expenses, not $17,000. One rung. You work out your genuine survival figure. Rent, power, food, insurance, transport, phone, and nothing else you would call optional. Yours comes to a little over $17,000 a year. You write that down once. Divide by 47. 365 rungs. Then the paper goes in a drawer, and you don't look at it again. From then on, your entire savings life is one automated instruction. Friday, 6:40, before coffee, before the month gets a vote, one rung moved without you. You decided once. The machine handles every morning after. But move 2 is the engine, the catch. The Friday rung is only the pulse. The building happens whenever money comes loose. You cancel the subscription you have been meaning to cancel since spring, $38. Freed money doesn't get absorbed back into the month. It converts. One rung that same day. Your tax refund arrives, $860. And a windfall is the money you are most likely to lose, because some part of your head has already classified it as extra rather than real. So the rule allows you 24 hours. Inside a day, it becomes 18 rungs, placed, counted, out of reach before the mood passes. A weekend shift, one rung. A refund you had written off, one more. The catch is how a $47 habit ends up moving at $400 a month. Move 3, the ceiling, the strange one, and the one that carries you through month 5. You are never permitted to make a savings decision larger than $47. Not once. Not, I'll do $300 this month, I'm on a roll. Because the impulse that puts $300 in during a good month is precisely the impulse that abandons the whole thing during a bad one. The ceiling keeps this dole on purpose, and dole is the part that survives. On the month, the car does make that noise, and no rung goes in at all. Nothing collapses. A percentage plan misses once and dies of embarrassment. A ladder simply stands there. It isn't keeping score. It is exactly as tall as it was, and the next rung is still $47. So why does shrinking the number work at all? It sounds far too simple to be the answer. I'll give you the actual named mechanism in a moment, but first you need to meet the man standing next to you, who heard exactly the same idea and did none of it. Call him Marcus. Same employer, same years served, takes home within $30 of what you do. Not a lazier man, not a weaker one. Hold on to that, it matters shortly. Marcus heard the same idea you did. He thought it was a good one. He said so out loud. Except he was going to start in the new year. The new year arrived, and it was a bad month to start. So he was going to start in the spring. In spring, the car needed work, so he was going to start once that was cleared. Every one of those was a reasonable decision. That's exactly what makes it impossible to see from the inside. Nobody sits down and decides not to save. They decide to begin on a better day. And better days keep arriving, somewhere just ahead of them. 14 months on, Marcus can still explain the rule back to you, accurately, in detail. He has never once moved $47. Your decision looked small beside his intentions. $47 small. It wasn't. Here's the name for what separated the two of you. Psychologists call it psychological distance, and it sits at the center of construal level theory. Your brain doesn't sort a goal by how big it is. It sorts it by how near it feels. A faraway goal, 20,000, someday, eventually, gets stored abstractly, blurred at the edges, theoretical. And nobody acts on the theoretical. A close goal, $47 this Friday, already scheduled, gets stored concretely. Concrete is the only thing a human being reliably acts on. Marcus didn't lose because he wanted it less than you. He lost because his target was filed somewhere far away, and yours was near enough to reach every week without thinking about it. Quick thing, and I do mean it, most money advice gets written for people with slack in their month. If you want the version written for a real paycheck, subscribing is how you tell me to keep going. Back to it. Now, the obvious objection, and it deserves a straight answer rather than a dodge, $47 is small. On the Friday transfer alone, a full year of survival takes about 7 years to assemble. With the catch running properly, it comes in nearer 3.5. I'm not going to make that sound better than it is. But here's what the objection gets wrong. A ladder shelters you long before the last rung goes on. Your first complete month of survival, 30 rungs, turns up around month 4. Month 4 is when the 1140 sessions at the kitchen table stop happening. Not month 43, month 4. Finishing is the destination. The fear leaves much earlier than that. Month 11, the car needs tires, $310. which is exactly the sort of figure you used to avoid saying out loud. You pay it. You take the keys, you drive home. And it isn't until you are turning into your own street that you notice what failed to happen. No spiral. No kitchen table at midnight. No shuffling the same money between columns, hoping it comes out differently. 6.5 rungs came off a ladder with 90 of them standing underneath. It barely registered. That's the product, incidentally, not the $17,000. The fact that a $300 afternoon got to be boring. One carve out before the end. If your income genuinely sits below your survival line, if the arithmetic is negative before a single rung exists, then this isn't a shame instrument, and rungs are not your first move. That's an income conversation, and it's a different video. A savings habit does not repair an income gap, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So here's the single move tonight. Work out your real survival figure, divide it by 47, write the number down once, and put it away. That's the ceiling already working before a single rung exists. Then set the transfer before you sleep. Same 640, same nobody knowing, except this one is real. You are not bad with money. Your brain was never built to feel a distance that large. No brain is. That was never the flaw you've been told it was. Put one rung up tonight. The ladder doesn't care when you started, only that you did.